Welcome to Upticks with Jake Falcon, founder and CEO of Falcon Wealth Advisors. In this podcast, we help high net worth individuals overcome financial complexities. We do this by enhancing financial literacy and discussing topics in a language free from industry jargon. Join us as we help explain exactly what having a solid financial plan means, as Jake draws from years of experience in helping hundreds of individuals get financially organized and focused on their goals. We hope you find Upticks educational, entertaining, and shareable. Now, on to the show.
Welcome back to Upticks with Jake and Corey. Today is episode 268. Corey, thank you for joining me back on the show.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
And as is practice, do you have anything new or exciting to share with our audience? Any updates or anything fun you're watching or reading?
Yes, I started at my platform tennis league last night. That's Kansas City wide. That starts this time of year. Last night was week 1, which is exciting. My wife and I just celebrated our 4-year anniversary, and I've started a new book that's called How to Be Perfect.
All right. Well, hopefully that plays true for you.
We'll find out.
Well, good. Sounds like it's weird. It's weird how our seasons change. You're like all ramping things up, and I am like winding things down. As of the recording of this show, I've got one more golf tournament, and then I think I'm going to shut her down for the season. But things are good. I'm reading a really good book called Unreasonable Hospitality. I'm almost done with it. It's been a fun read. I'm excited to bring some of those points to the team. And yeah, all is well. As far as me and Rachel and Einstein, everything's going well also. And I would thank all of you out there for listening and tuning in to Upticks. Our subscriber count on YouTube, Corey, just surpassed 500. So I'm real excited about that. Our downloads continue to improve. So please, please, please like and share our episodes. I believe on iTunes, you can leave a review also. That's the way more people get to see and hear our content. And again, ultimately, we are looking to enhance financial literacy, and we do so at scale by Upticks. Also, a quick disclosure, please don't take anything that we say as actual financial advice. All advice should be handled one-on-one with us or your financial advisor. All right, Corey, let's kick it off here.
Let's do it.
All right, so my first headline today is 3 things home buyers can ask for now. Now, as many people know, interest rates have shot up. And as a result, you would think the pendulum is swinging back into the home buyer's favor. I got to go on a quick rant here, Corey, and this is why I didn't talk too much about my personal stuff, because I just had a horrible experience trying to buy a home. So I think this article is a little bit of hogwash, because I don't think you can ask for anything right now. And my quick thing, I already told you about this, but to share with our audience, Rachel and I tried to buy a house, and the agent only let us and I guess another person each put in one offer. So he was like, I want your best and final offer. That's it. And I just was so uncomfortable. I thought it was absurd. They priced the house low, weirdly, so it was underpriced. So of course we went over asking, but I wasn't going to go 20, 30% over asking. I thought that would be stupid. I'm a wealth advisor. I'm not going to overpay for something. And we didn't get the house, long story short. The other person, I guess, I don't even know. Supposedly they put in a better offer, and that was it. I just think that's so stupid and short-sighted for a real estate agent to do that, to not only to us, the buyers, but don't you think, Corey, he could have gotten more money if he let me and that other person bid it up?
Yes, I do.
So thank you for
I've thought a lot about this since you explained it to me, and I don't really know the answer other than maybe this is just part of the real estate market shifting, and maybe because there was only 2 people that made offers, and 2 years ago maybe there would have been 20 offers in a bidding war, but they know that's not going to happen. But I really don't have an explanation for why. It seems a little short-sighted to the person selling the house, in all likelihood, sold the house or is selling the house for less money than they would have if you would have had the opportunity to make another bid.
Right, because we could have gone higher. Now someone might say, well, then why didn't you bid higher to begin with? But I wasn't going to, I would have felt fiscally irresponsible if I just threw out a number 30, 40% higher than they were asking. I wasn't going to do that. I just feel like that's irresponsible as a human being. So I thought it was stupid. My real estate agent thought it was stupid. So I don't know, Corey. I just think I don't agree with it, and it really it ruined it, you know. So
do you disagree with most everything in the article?
yeah, well, let's go. Yeah, let's move along here. They claim you can ask for help with closing costs. You can get the seller to buy down your mortgage rate, or you can ask the seller to fix up the house, like mowing the lawn, or maybe hire a cleaning person, I guess, or something. So they're arguing that it's shifting. I disagree with this article. But I would, that being said, as an advisor, I would encourage clients that are moving or buying and selling a home just to be mindful of your agent and who you're working with. Make sure you understand what's going on. And if there is an opportunity to take advantage of the current environment, then absolutely they should. But I wouldn't do it in a gameful way. Because again, I felt like this guy's playing a game and I didn't like that. So anyways, what's next?
All right, switching gears here. What's next? The first highlight I have is Medicare open enrollment is almost here. Don't make this common mistake. This is from Barron's, and this is really good because open enrollment for Medicare begins on October 15th, and it runs through December 7th. It's basically the window of time. There's 65 million people in the United States that are recipients of Medicare benefits. And according to a study from the Kaiser Family Foundation, less than 1/3 of those people actually review their current Medicare plan and the other options available to them. The point being 2/3 of Medicare recipients just sort of roll with their plan into the next year without evaluating what options are out there. So the big takeaway, and really the common mistake this article talked about, was don't just let it roll. You should take some time and put some energy into evaluating what you have, evaluating what else is available, but don't just assume that it's something that you set and then forget. But also, this is the window of time we're in it right now up until December 7th, where people can change their Part D drug plan or, switch to a Medicare Advantage plan if that makes sense for them. We're in that window right now, and it's wise for people that are recipients, 65 million people and growing, to make sure that they have the right coverage.
That's crazy. So you're suggesting from this article that 40 million people don't even review their Medicare.
The Kaiser Family Foundation is suggesting that. But yes, they actually looked at the data from the 2020 enrollment period, and that's where they found that less than 1/3 of beneficiaries of Medicare who actually receive the benefits even evaluated the options that they have.
Wow. Yeah, and we've got really good contacts in this space,
Yes.
so it's not something that we go into the weeds on. But if you do want our contact, simply email service@falconwealthadvisors.com. Let our team know that you'd like to be referred to someone that can help you with your Medicare enrollment, and we're happy to point you in the direction of someone. Again, we're not endorsing that person, but the point is there are health insurance brokers out there that would more than happily take a look at your Medicare. And I think you should review it. Again, I know we've talked about this before on this show, but I don't know if you need to review it every year, but that's really low that, 1/3 of the people are reviewing it. I would expect half at least.
Yeah, and it just seems like that landscape changes so much from year to year that, that's the reason that I would encourage people to understand what they have and understand what their options are, because it's changing a lot every year.
Right. All right. So my next headline's from the Wall Street Journal. It says retirement is a time to downsize and not just stuff. So it was kind of a sad article, really, Corey. And this was I believe it was about a married couple. And they said that for them, downsizing is more than getting rid of stuff. It's about getting rid of conceptions of myself, of who I was, who I am, and who I want to be. So this article was talking about, like, if you've got a guitar and you had intentions of getting guitar lessons and playing the guitar, maybe now's the time, and you've never done it, right, in 40 years. Maybe now's the time to get rid of the guitar. But what was inspiring about this article was that the people that they interviewed or were authoring it were suggesting that that's okay, that actually relieved some burden. Because you ever have something like, I don't know, maybe it's your garage or whatever, like, I really need to clean the garage. I really need to clean the garage, but you never get around to doing it. I guess the concept here was that, like, if you always feel like I need to get guitar lessons, why don't you just say, you know what? I'm not going to learn how to play the guitar. I'm going to sell the guitar. I'm going to give the guitar away. And that's not my new purpose. That's not my new focus. I'm going to focus on whatever that is now moving forward. So I just thought it's sad because they were talking about all these memories and wonderful experiences and all these good intentions that never played out. But the light to that, or the good side to that, is saying, hey, you've got new intentions, you've got a new purpose, you've got other things you want to do. So let's free yourself of that burden, and let's get rid of some of those expectations that perhaps you've been putting on yourself for decades, and free yourself up a little bit. You have any comments on this?
Yeah, that's good. I think it's kind of like aligned with the seasons of life, right? Things change and there are different seasons. And I think that's really what this is speaking to, but it makes a lot of sense to me. Exactly the way you've described it is, because I know what you mean about, like, I need to take guitar lessons. I need to take guitar lessons. At some point, I need to recognize that if I really cared about learning how to play the guitar, I probably would have already taken the lessons. So maybe it's time for me to get rid of the guitar, not use that mental energy thinking about that anymore, and move on to something new.
Right. Right. Imagine how freeing that would be. Again, I'm lucky. I don't have a lot of that personally, but I could see how somebody could easily. I think you can easily fall into that trap.
Well, you said about the garage, Jake. Cassie, my wife, will give me a hard time sometimes that there are some projects around the house that in the winter, I'm like, ooh, that's a great project for the heat of the summer. And then when the heat of the summer comes around, I'm like, ooh, that's a perfect project for the winter. I'm just trying to punt it from season to season.
There you go, Corey.
Eventually we'll get to it.
Nice.
All right. The next headline I have here is interestingly aligned with that, but also kind of the other side, Jake. This is talking about unretiring. More retirees are going back to work because they want to or because they need to. And this is from Yahoo Finance. And I thought some of the data that was included in here was really interesting. And I have a chart. Jake, I know you love the charts that we're going to show here today too. I think this one's a good visual representation of the actual data. But this highlights that 7%. So a new study was released by T. Rowe Price that said that 7% of retirees are looking for work in retirement, and 20% say that they're already working part-time or full-time. And in 2021, that number was 10%. So it's doubled in about 2 years in terms of the number of people participating in this survey that say that they're either working part-time or full-time. And naturally, the two main reasons for coming back into the workforce, though, are very much polar opposites. One are because people need to financially, and the other is because people crave the social connection. But I thought it did a good job of highlighting that just because somebody reaches a specific age doesn't mean that it doesn't mean they need to never work again, or they need to hang it up, or there's nothing that's saying it's time for you to retire because you're 60 or 65 or whatever it might be. Because this article highlighted a lot of people much later in retirement that come right back to it, that come right back to work, oftentimes for reasons other than just money.
Got it. So what's this chart telling us? That basically it doesn't have to do with income either?
So the chart is talking about how the motivations for the need to work in retirement are driven by different things, which is largely finance, assets, investable assets. So the point and the takeaway from this is that for someone that has less than $50,000 in investable assets, 37% of them believe that they don't need to work. For someone with over $750,000, 72% of them believe that they don't need to work. And also the have to work varies from demographic to demographic. But the larger point there is there are more people right now that are going back into the workforce from retirement than there have been in a while. The motivations and the reasons for that are different. But I think that this is an interesting and compelling topic because I've had a lot of conversations with clients about it.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you shared that. You're right. And you're right. You can definitely work for different reasons. So I like that. All right, let's move it over to taxes. So tax moves to consider now before the 2017 cuts expire. So I believe it's in 2026 is when the tax rates are going to go up. Now, some people, Corey, are banking on a new political regime changing that, but we can't count on that. So today, again, here in a couple of years, tax rates are going to go higher. So there are some things that you can do now from a tax planning perspective to set yourself up potentially to pay less taxes, really. And this article was good. It talked about the Roth IRA, which we've talked a lot about on this show. So again, if you have an IRA, certainly, and if you're retired and you want to consider converting some of that IRA to a Roth IRA, theoretically now could be a better time than waiting until 2026 because you may have to pay more in taxes when you do the conversion if you wait. There's also another one about gifts, right? So you can start shrinking your taxable estate because the estate tax brackets are going to go down also. So that could, you could potentially front load a 529 education savings plan for your child or grandchild to lower your taxable estate. And then it also talked about, Corey, charitable giving. They're going to adjust how much you can deduct from a cash contribution standpoint. So my point of all this is, again, not to dish out advice today, but it's just to bring awareness to our audience that, hey, look, we know what the tax rates are today. We know they are due to go up. So now is the time to get with our financial planners, go through our tax planning exercise, and let's see if we can lower that lifetime tax by taking advantage of the current rates as they stand today. It was a good article. I'm glad it's putting out there. I don't think a lot of people know that, Corey, because when we tell that to clients, it's almost always a surprise, like, oh, I didn't know the tax rates were going to go up. And so we've been really working hard on educating our clients, letting them know that no, the tax brackets are going to change unless a politician gets that reversed, which I think will be very difficult to do. So I would assume they're going to go up. And again, we want to be ready for it and make sure that we're taking advantage of the current rates as they stand. You have any thoughts on that?
I think it's good to work to make decisions based on the information that you have and where you're at, which is illustrating your point too, Jake, that it may change. We may just see things revert back. We may see a new piece of legislation. We don't know. It's going to look different from year to year between now and then, but I really think that's the right way to think about it.
Right. Good. What's next?
All right. I have a few more charts here for you, Jake. So this is,
of course you do.
So there was a report done that was 16 things you don't know, but you probably should. And this is from Strategas Research. I just highlighted 2 of them that I wanted to point out and bring up and just kind of talk with you about here, Jake. The first one.
So hold on. These are things you may not know, but probably should. What a good title.
Yeah. 16 things you may not know, but probably should.
Okay.
One is that nearly 1/3 of America's outstanding debt, so think the Treasury and the government, matures within the next year. And overall marketable debt carrying a weighted average cost of 3.02%. When I look at this, Jake, this tells me that we know the government has a lot of debt. We know that governments around the world have a lot of debt. But in the United States, there's a whole lot that's set to mature in the next year or two. And the average cost to the government on that debt is around 3%. We know where interest rates are at now. I'm just curious, Jake, do you have an opinion on this? What do you think about this? Because I look at this data and I think if the government continues to spend money at the same clip, that it's going to get very expensive for them to do so because rates are higher. Unless they either have more revenue from taxes or the government is spending less money or interest rates go down. But it seems like one of those 3 outcomes has to occur based on this. What do you think?
Right. I think it's a little scary, Corey. So like you're saying that 1/3 of it's going to mature, which means they're not going to pay it off. They're just going to refinance it, right? And roll it probably into higher interest debt. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're suggesting? Correct. So yeah, I think that it's long overdue, but there needs to be a fiscal overhaul in America's spending. I know the debt ceiling's been raised. So my thought is that it's probably going to need to be raised again because of this pretty quickly. And so I don't like it. I think if any citizen managed their debt the way America manages their debt, they'd be in a whole heap of trouble and out of money. But America gets to print the money, so it's not. So yes, I think it needs an overhaul. But I wouldn't, as an investor or retiree or just an individual, I wouldn't be overly concerned about this, even though I don't necessarily like it. Because ultimately, the government, because they're making the laws, will just flip it, roll it, do what they need to do to adjust. And hopefully we'll get some responsible politicians in there to make good decisions to get that pointed in a better direction. But ultimately, Corey, as long as the economy grows, and GDP grows, then they can overcome this debt pretty easily. So I don't think that it's necessarily tightening the belt that needs to happen. It needs to be robust growth, more people paying taxes, not higher taxes, but more people working, making good wages. So I would love the economy to grow so that the debt becomes smaller. But you can't do
what happened after World War II.
Right. But what has been happening though is both have been growing. So you need to have some tightening there on the spending, but I'd love to see the economy grow. But yeah, It's good. It's a scary chart. Do you have a nicer chart to show? What's your second chart?
Do I have? Yes, I do. Well, nicer. I'll let you tell me if it's nicer. But I think that this is really helpful for people to see and to understand too, because we've talked about this some on the show. As far as the S&P 500, the stock market in the United States, the top 10 stocks in the S&P 500, which is actually 503 companies, I think, have accounted for 96% of the index's returns this year at the end of September. So 96.5% of the S&P 500's returns this year have come from 10 stocks. And the next closest year was 78.7%. And I think this is important just for us to highlight and to talk about, because I think it is important for people to understand what makes up the S&P 500 and what drives the returns. But if someone is thinking they're going to be equally diversified across 500 companies in the S&P 500, if they buy an ETF or whatever it may be, I just think it's important to understand that that's really not what's going on.
Right. So yes, you have to be careful. I would be very hesitant for any, again, this isn't advice, but don't buy an S&P 500 fund, like you just said, and think that you're diversified. Basically, 10 stocks are carrying that whole index. So my argument, Corey, is that the S&P 500 probably isn't a good gauge of really what's going on in the market anymore. Because you're basically getting a sample size of 10 is really what it's telling you, what 10 stocks are doing. And if I told a client, I don't care about anything else, I'm just going to tell you what these 10 stocks are doing, and that's how the whole world is doing, they would laugh at me. And so I'm glad you shared this, and you're right. And we actually take an equal weight stance. And historically speaking, one could argue that equal weight may perform better. Nobody knows the future, so I'm not suggesting we are trying to predict the future with that. But also, we would much rather be equal than cap weighted and risk volatility, more volatility than is necessary. Because again, last year, these stocks drug the market down too. I mean, you could see on your chart, 2020 wasn't that long ago when it was driving it in 2007. So you just have to be careful with the S&P 500. Again, it's something, it's a barometer, but it's not the end all be all of really how the market's doing. I like this chart because it's just telling you how 10 stocks are doing, really.
Right. Yeah. But the 97% is such a high percentage. That surprised me when I saw that.
Right.
All right.
All right. Good. Thank you. Your chart done.
A little bit nicer. A little bit nicer for you there, Jake. Hopefully.
All right. I got the next topic here. This is a quick one. The IRS revs up tax credit for buying EVs or electric vehicles. So I guess in 2024, Corey, electric vehicle buyers can get an instant $7,500 tax credit at the dealership when you buy that type of car. So my question to you is, would this entice you if you needed a new car? Is it enough money to entice you to buy an EV? I guess is where I'm going with this.
Me? No.
Yeah, you.
No.
No. Yeah.
How about you?
I'm all for saving the planet and, helping with emissions. I am not an EV fan because I grew up in Texas. I just, I can't be. It just doesn't feel right. I think that it probably is the future, but I don't think it's the future yet. And the way I see EV is and I love them. Tesla cars are sweet looking. You test drove one a long time ago, and I rode around it with you, and it was cool. And I have a client, that has one. And again, I think they're cool cars, so I don't want to knock them. I think getting $7,500 isn't enough. I think you have to have a bigger reason of wanting to buy one, is my point, I guess, than the $7,500. And also, good. I think they're probably going to price them higher to offset that a little bit. So I don't know. I think they're great, but again, I'm just a Texas guy, and I don't mind gasoline still. So I think it's good. I think it's a good thing, but I don't think it's going to make me buy it. Not yet. That credit gets up to 15,000, maybe we'll talk.
That's right. Yeah, and if the EV prices come down and the credit gets larger, then we're talking.
Right. All right, good. Corey. I think we've got time here for 2 more topics.
Yep. These are going to be quick here. I have a lot of charts for you this week. Jake, this one is from JP Morgan's Guide to the Markets, which is published quarterly. And I just wanted to flash this up here and talk about this for a moment, Jake, to point it out, because this particular chart's talking about the annual returns and the annual declines in the market. So what you're looking at here on the downside, when you see those red dots across the bottom, that's showing the maximum drawdown in the market in each of these years going back to 1980. And the point here is that despite all of the average intra-year declines that we've seen occur, positive returns have been 32 out of the last 43 years in the market, and that you should expect to have volatility in the portfolio because there's very few, if any, years where there's no drawdowns or there's no pullback in the market. That's part of investing.
Yeah, it's good. I like it. Good chart. I think Jordan showed me this on our team the other day. I don't know if you shared it with her, but I think she showed me something similar. But yeah, I agree. I love it because you're like, even in what is the best years, -3%, still in that year. And again, this year it's dropped 8%. It's been up as high as 12. So, that's a good one, Corey. Clients need to remember that the market goes up and down. Ideally, we want it to go up more than it goes down.
Yes. And then the chart right below that, Jake, is just really reiterating the same point here. This time diversification and the volatility of returns. Same idea, the range of stock to bond and blended total returns. So this is just looking at a 50-50 portfolio, all stocks and all bonds. And the point is, if you're just evaluating a 1-year time frame, the range of outcomes can be very large, right? Things are very volatile. But as your time horizon expands, we see that range shrink and the numbers move more positive, which is all just reiterating the point, in my opinion, that having balance, having the appropriate time horizon, and having things managed and driven by math as opposed to emotions is the right approach to investing.
That's good, Corey. Yeah, I like this one, especially for our older clients, because a lot of times they'll say, well, Jake, I don't have time for it to recover.
Sure.
I'm retired or blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to discount age or anything, but you're right. As little as 5 years, look at that jump from 1 to 5 years, how tighter that span goes, and then 10 years. So again, you're right. We're not talking you've got to wait 50 years for your account to recover. Your account was down last year more than likely. Theoretically, it should be back in the next, hopefully, 3 to 5 years, or sooner. And so that's what this chart is kind of showing you, that you're going to have negative years in the short term, but as the 5, 10, and certainly the 20-year mark goes, you should be trending higher. And again, this is not a predictor of the future, Corey. Don't want you to start trying to predict the future with these charts.
Nope.
So
I just think we're looking at the last 70 years and the data's right there.
Right. All right. Well, I get a low pullback on my charts because I actually included some charts today also.
All right, good.
We'll wrap it up here with the last headline: Social Security COLA, or cost of living adjustment, to give retirees a roughly 3.2% raise in 2024. So I guess it was officially announced. We talked about this, I think, last week. And the question is it enough? And what I found interesting was a couple of charts that I wanted to share. And again, I'm not trying to predict the future, and I'm not a chart guy, so I don't want people thinking that I am. But I threw these in here for you, Corey. This first chart breaks down the budget for older versus younger Americans. And I talk about this with clients actually all the time, is that everybody has their own budget, of course, but you also have your personal inflation numbers. And so what was pretty cool about this is that younger people spend a lot more money on transportation. It makes sense, right? They're going to work. Older people spend a lot more money on healthcare. Makes sense. They're getting older. And then younger people spend a lot more money on insurance, personal insurance. And then older people have more cash contributions. So the point is, everybody's spending is a little bit different, but you have to understand, where is your spending increasing, and does this help you, or is it not enough? And I mean, it's sad. It's like $59 a month is the average raise. So again, I'm not suggesting that it is enough or significant, but if you look back on my second chart here, and the chart goes back to 1975, most years on this chart, Corey, it's around 4% or under. So again, 3%-ish isn't horrible. And I remember the years when it was 0, right? So there's been times when there was nothing. And again, we talked about this last week or the week before, whenever we talked about this last, was that they have to use some gauge. The reality is inflation has cooled. And so that's why you're getting less of a pay raise. But I'm glad to see something. 3% is better than nothing. And if you need budgeting help, we have a budgeting exercise that our financial planners are happy to take you through. So if you're like, Jake, Corey, $59 doesn't do anything for me, I'm still bleeding money, or I still feel broke, or I still feel strapped for cash, then I highly encourage you to go through our budgeting exercise with our financial planners, and they can help make sure that your money is lined up with your purpose and your values. And maybe we can find some ways to save you some of that monthly cash flow. All right. What a great another episode. Corey, you got any final comments as we wrap up here today?
I just want to add something real quick to what you just said about the budgeting exercise. And what I would say is that, if you feel that way, like you mentioned, Jake, about $54 or $59 a month, it's not going to make a difference in bleeding money. It's a good opportunity to take some control back, go through that exercise. That's the specific reason that we offer those services, is because we want to enhance our clients' lives. We want to help them understand their financial plans and enhance their financial literacy. So take us up on the offers to do that. That's why we offer it and why we do it. But taking that control back helps people very often, in my experience.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, thank you, Corey. Thanks for joining me as always. And thank you all for listening and watching. We hope all of you have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Upticks. Click the subscribe button to be notified when new episodes become available. Also, be sure to visit our website, falconwealthadvisors.com, and click the Contact Us button if you'd like to meet with Jake and his team.